Tim Chapman joins me now. He is president at Advancing American Freedom. It's a public policy advocacy organization founded by former Vice President Mike Pence. Mr. President, welcome back.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a little slower in D.C. right now in the summer because Congress is gone for a while. But that's not a permanent state of affairs. Things are going to break open, and it's going to be pretty messy here in September, and then we're going to be right into the midterms. So, kind of looking forward to all of that.
I like this little interregnum where I can get you on the phone before all the madness starts, like right around Labor Day.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, for sure.
So what are you guys going to be doing in the midterms, if anything?
So what our organization will be doing in the midterms, we'll be making arguments for the best policies that we think can help candidates win. It's a tough environment, truthfully, for conservatives, and it's a tougher environment, I think, for Republicans right now. I think Republicans are lagging behind in the polls, as you know, and you've been following. They're lagging behind the polls because a lot of the promises that, were expected from Republican leadership haven't been delivered. And I think our role at AAF in that kind of environment is to remind Republicans, and specifically, conservative Republicans, what we think can actually help. If you look at the issue set going into these midterms, I think the number one issue is affordability. Mm-hmm. Like most people are looking at how are they going to make their ends meet month to month right now. And rising prices aren't helping the environment for Republicans. And I just think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that Republicans could tackle if they really put their minds to it when they came back to Washington. So there's a lot of deregulatory work they could do. There's even some more tax reform that they could do. If they would find a way to get serious about spending, and look, this isn't going to fix the issue before the midterms, but over time, if you get serious about fixing the issue of debt and deficits, you can change the interest rates people are experiencing. You can push back on inflation. So there's a lot on the table for conservatives to tackle. They just have not yet done it. And I got to just say, I like that Republicans have, the both branches, the executive and the Congress. But at the end of the day, when you're given that kind of responsibility, you got to deliver. And one big tax bill isn't going to cut it. And so I think that's probably partly why we're going into this a little bit handicapped. But I'll say, Julie, it is not too late for Republicans to legislate.
It's not. Save yourselves. But it's not too late.
It's going to be tight. I'll tell you this. There are only 16 legislative days left.
Oh my God! Oh my! And they're going to
16 days that Congress
waste half of them talking, right? And fighting.
They're going to fight over continuing resolutions and appropriations and it's frustrating. But our role as an advocacy organization is try to point to some good policy objectives, and so we'll be doing that. We'll see if they'll listen.
There were a couple things, Tim, that bubbled up this year that were of great interest. One is the data centers and AI, right? That was a bottoms-up campaign issue. I see Republicans and Democrats, but everyone's refining their message on that, and that's really interesting. And the next one I see that's coming up that's just now sort of gathering strength is this idea that so many people paid these tariffs and the corporations got the rebates and they're keeping them. And I feel like people are just finding out about it. They're starting to get mad. And I know that your organization is concerned about tariffs, and it's so sticky, right? It's a tricky one because president's doubling down on tariffs. He likes them. Most Republicans being quiet about it. So how do you negotiate that?
Well, the tariffs have been a disaster policy-wise. The stated goal of the tariffs is to create more manufacturing jobs and reshore manufacturing in the United States. And you look at since the big tariff announcement of Liberation Day, we've lost 900,000 manufacturing jobs. So they're not achieving their policy objective. Now, some on the right who have championed the tariffs are trying to shift the goalposts, and they're saying that, hey, no, this is a long-term investment and eventually bringing jobs home, right? And they're even having to admit that the tariffs have contributed to price hikes for people at the pump or people in the grocery store. And they're starting to admit that, but they're saying that price is worth paying because long term we're going to enter into this golden age. And one just wonders how long you have to experience the pain, and how much more of this we have to go through. I mean, look, you talk about something Congress could do when they get back. They won't do this, but they should. Congress should retake the power of the purse when they come back on the tariff issue, and they should pass a law, and they should state up front that the power of the purse, per the Constitution of the United States, remains with Congress, and that the president doesn't have the ability to use tariffs the way that he's been using them. It is a sticky issue. He's committed to it. I think it's wrongheaded. On the AI issue, I think you're right. I think, there is a populist movement right now to push back, and it's a bipartisan populist movement pushing back against data center creation. I think we have to be careful about this. On one hand, I do want to acknowledge that I think the kind of populist instinct to push back against data centers comes from a place of real valid caution. People are cautious about what AI means for the future, and people are worried that it could mean really bad things for jobs. It could mean bad things for privacy. Even the AI lords out there who are building this big tech are saying there's a 1 in 10 chance they blow up the world with it. So I understand. Okay,
Only 1 in 10.
I understand the caution. Yeah. So just roll the dice. Let's hope it goes okay. Now, on the flip side of that, if you actually look at where the data centers are going in, you look at data centers going in Loudoun County in Virginia, and you look at tax rates going down because tax rates are going down because of all the influx of money for the county. And that means county leaders can actually build more parks and can lower property rates and property taxes. That's a good thing. So somehow we got to find a balance in this debate. Look, I don't think we're putting the AI genie back in the bottle. As much as I share some of those cautious concerns. And I think that smart policymakers need to get together and say, how do you build a human-centered AI? And how do you build an AI future that actually will protect what's best about being a human, will contribute to our economy, and put some guardrails on AI that are actually smart. But I think that's a tough project. And right now, really what you see are pitchforks on both sides. And it's creating a tough policy-making environment.
It doesn't surprise me, though, Tim, because a lot of these data centers went in without any sort of public announcement or buy-in. Right. So of course, the reaction would be a strong one. But yeah, if local jurisdictions just take a beat, have a few public meetings, airing of grievances, and then figure out the way forward, I think everyone's
the pros and cons.
Exactly.
Right?
Then everyone will calm down because they'll feel like they're being heard.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You can't change the fabric of a community overnight without having a conversation about it. And I think you're exactly right, Julie.
Now, what about this government investment into private corporations?
I'm not a big fan. I think conservatives have always been wary about the government kind of taking over private infrastructure, and there are lots of good reasons for that. And the biggest reason is that we don't think it's constitutionally appropriate. Another reason for that is we think that the private sector tends to make better decisions about what's in the interest of their customers than the government does. And I think we're in an environment now where some people are pushing on the right the idea that we need to take stock in certain companies. So take a 10% stake in Intel or take a 20% stake in a mining company or whatever, and do this in such a way as it rewards the taxpayer. The problem is it never does end up rewarding the taxpayer. Even if there are gains, those gains go into the federal treasury and then get spent on some other boondoggle that Washington decides to spend it on. It never gets kicked back to the federal taxpayer. And to think about this, like back to our previous conversation on tariffs, populist Republicans who were championing the tariff program were saying, and even the president himself was saying, we're going to give a tariff refund or a tariff dividend back to the taxpayer. Did that ever manifest itself? No, it's gone. And in the meantime, look at the size of the growth of the deficit and the debt and the problem we have with the growth of government.
40.
Yes. Where is that money coming back? I don't understand. Even the DOGE effort that was early on this year, that was trying to identify billions in waste, fraud, and abuse. How does that money come back to the taxpayer? all we see are continuing skyrocketing here. So I just think this is a real time of choosing for Republicans in particular. And I understand some of the policies that this party has been pushing, but the ones that you and I have just discussed seem really off base. And I think the party has to find a way to navigate itself back to a center of where it's traditionally been. And I still think those policies are popular. At the end of the day, limiting the size and scope of government is popular. People want to deal with the debt issue and are afraid about the debt issue. People still like tax cuts. People would like a freer market, and people like entrepreneurs and respect entrepreneurs. And so these issues can still win. There's just this crisis of confidence within our party right now. And it's really not good that the crisis of confidence still exists as we're heading into a midterm election against the Democratic Socialists of America, who have gone all the way around the other end of the horseshoe. And so you don't want to create a faint echo going into this midterm. You want to create a real choice. And I just think there's a problem here right now. And so we've got to find a way as Republicans and conservatives to right the ship pronto.
I remember prosperity. I'd like to go back to that, Tim. That'd be nice.
Hey,
be prosperous,
I like that idea.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tim Chapman, president at Advancing American Freedom. It's a public policy advocacy organization founded by Vice President Mike Pence. Tim, you're the best. Thanks for joining me.